everybody, and welcome to America Unhinged. I'm Wajahat, and I'm with the fantabulous Francesca Fiorentini, who, folks, is with us, even though she's been coughing up a storm, but she's such a pro. She gets it done, and she looks great while doing it.
Thank you. I wish I could sign this entire thing. This is America Unhinged, everybody. We are a show that covers the first 100 days of Trump's second administration. We are on day 88 of this, like, honestly, a constitutional crisis. That is exactly what it is. Openly defying the Supreme Court. What are we all going to do about it? It's on us. I was listening to the awesome Arcade Fire song, I Give You Power. It's with Mavis Staples. The rest of that line is, I give you power and I can take it away. It's a dope song, and I think it should lead us in these dark times. And speaking of dark times, Watch, we do have some breaking news just to start off the show right off the bat. The CFPB is being gutted. We're talking 1,400 officials and employees of 1,700. So the majority of the CFPB, in a letter sent to staff, the legal officer, Mark Paoletta, announced the agency shifting away from supervisory roles and towards tangible harm to consumers, except medical debt, student loans, consumer data, and digital payments are all going to be deprioritized. So only if an actual, if a corporation has physically strangled you to death, will the CFPB, Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, be looking into it at all. And we all know how often that happens.
Oh, yeah, every day. The CFPB, folks, is one of the winners, if you will, a fantastic program established by Senator Warren since 2011, which has saved over 200 million American consumers over $21 billion. It has a cost of $9 billion. So it's a win-win situation, folks. And how did it save all of these American consumers so much money? Well, primarily through enforcement and supervisory actions against financial companies. This relief included monetary compensation, principal reductions, canceled debts, and other forms of consumer protection that now, according to Francesca, and if you were listening to her, will now be just, gone because they have essentially gutted the entire CFPB, eliminating 1,400 people. And again, Francesca, do you want to remind people who it helps to destroy the CFPB?
It helps corporations and wealthy people. And this is the Financial Protection Agency that was set up after the big recession, the financial recession of 2008, the crash, that was like, look, Americans cannot just be run roughshod over by corporations. And yet, ever since the pandemic, and increasingly as we're relying more and more on AI, corporations are rolling out things like personalized pricing. That's right, personalized pricing, so that Waj and I could go into the exact same store or try to buy something on the exact same day on our phones or online and be given a different price. It means surge pricing. So if it's hot out, ice cream is going to be more expensive on the hot days, right? That kind of corporate fuckery, honestly, is going to now be approved. And money that the CFPB was getting back, that was money that was going into our pockets.
Yep.
We're talking about, things like limiting overdraft fees and all of that. In addition to just blanket, if you've ever been defrauded, right? Which, again, many of us have. So anyway, there's a lot more we're covering on the show today.
Well,
Why do you want to take us through it? Yeah,
we have to lead with that, folks, and it's bipartisan. Everyone hates overdraft fees. Thank you to the CFPB for attacking it. But guess who wants to bring back overdraft fees? Republicans. And guess what they don't want to bring back? Kilmar Abrego Garcia and 238 immigrants who were kidnapped and sent potentially to die in a foreign gulag in El Salvador. We're going to be covering the latest in this horrific case. He is a Maryland father, a person who was here legally, and the Trump administration said that they sent him as an administrative error, but now they're making up lies about him just as an excuse not to bring him back, assuming we hope that he is still alive. And now, folks, the Trump administration, like we warned on the show, is detaining U.S. citizens. Also, we're going to be joined by Dr. Abdul El-Sayed some exciting news. Just today, he announced he is running for Senate in Michigan, and he has a big endorsement. It rhymes with Learny. You can, Learny. I wonder who. And also, before we hand it off to Francesca, who will tell you to like and subscribe and not cough her way out of this, but she'll make it done. We were having a debate right before we hit record. Francesca said that the music in the 90s when we grew up was the best, early 90s. She said early 2000s, 2010s, very weak. I concur. Let us know if you agree with this. Early 90s, bangers. 2000, 2010s, yo, you were missing out.
I think it started picking up when 2010 hit, but like tail end of the first decade of the 2000s were like, what? Anyway, if you're here, tune in to old people like old people music, as well as discussing rising authoritarianism in the United States. Like this stream right now, share it with your YouTube channel. Let people know what you listen to. Also, you can subscribe to this channel if you're not already, and make sure to click the bell. So there's a little drop down and there's a bell on it, and it'll give you an alert. It'll ping you on your email and say, hey, Waj and Francesca are live right now. Hit that, and Zeteo will also let you know when they're live. Medi often does like Q&As. So you could be the first to know about all of those. And also, we are up for, and when I say we, Zeteo is up for a Webby right now for the flagship podcast, We're Not Kidding. So definitely please vote. I believe in the description there is a link to go vote for the Webbies. And thank you so much, everyone who has done so already.
In the United States, folks, we have some more breaking news, which sadly should be shocking, but unfortunately will be forgotten because it's so common. And we're talking about a shooting at Florida State University today. 2 people dead, not students, 6 people injured. The shooter is in custody after opening fire at the student union. This is what we know so far. The suspect is a 20-year-old son of current sheriff's deputy who had access to one of her weapons, according to Leon County Sheriff Walt McNeil. He was identified as Phoenix Ickner. McNeil said it was not a surprise that the suspect had access to weapons, as he was a member of the Sheriff's Office Citizen Advisory or Youth Advisory Council. Officials said the suspect's mother purchased one of her former service weapons, and it was her personal property at the time of the shooting. The shooter is not a Colombian, not a Venezuelan, not a brown Muslim. Nope. 20-year-old white man, Phoenix Ickner, who allegedly is a Republican and a Trump supporter, and also has allegedly online mocked anti-Trump supporters, also has quoted Bible verses. Folks, we have more guns than people in the United States of America, 400 million guns, and there are about 340 million people. There are a lot of folks who say thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers is trending right now on Twitter. But there was an FSU student who said, you know what? Instead of thoughts and prayers, let's have this instead.
Going to call on, Governor Ron DeSantis, the President Donald Trump for, this stuff keeps going on, right? But we're praying every day. Prayer is good. Spirituality is good. But, prayers don't do much, right? So, it's good for the soul, but is this still happening? I think it is. So, we need to make some gun reforms.
Gun reforms, gun control, maybe banning assault rifles, just some ideas top of my head. But lo and behold, in this constitutional crises that we're facing in this administration, why would you take on endeavors, Francesca, that can actually, save lives? Just 10 days ago, people, the New York Times reported the Trump administration is planning on rolling back key gun control measures from the Biden administration. The Trump administration is expected to roll back a range of Biden-era gun control measures, including a program to crack down on federally licensed gun dealers who falsify business records and skip customer background checks, according to 2 people briefed on the move. So, we're so worried about criminal gang members and MS-13 and all these dangerous criminals getting access to guns. Let's make it easier for them to lie and obtain guns and engage in violence and mass shootings and, buy assault rifles, which shoot bullets that tear through our children. And this happens again and again, and we do nothing except thoughts and prayers.
I'm very comfortable politicizing mass shootings because they are political. I'm very comfortable because of the makeup of who often does the shooting, right? I mean, the fact that this was a Republican, that this was a white guy, white man, is significant because 95% of mass shooters are men. Imagine for a second if 95% of shooters were women. This country would be like, damn, we got to do something. And instead, we're getting our rights taken away. I have a lot of, obviously, thoughts on this. I think it's really important to note that when you don't actually go after dealers who are selling weapons, this is not necessarily this man's case. This guy was the son of a sheriff's deputy. So let's put aside that for a second, that, we are being told in this country that police officers and their families, they're fine, upstanding, perfect human beings, but we've all lived through 2020. We all saw how they behaved, and we all understand the way that militarism infects and impacts one's mindset and communities. But specifically when it comes to the amount of gun violence in this country, it's just out of control, right? Continues to be. Our last stats are from 2022. 48,000 people died that year each day, an average of 132 people. Guns are the leading cause of death among children and teens and accounted for more deaths than car crashes, overdose, or cancer. Since 2013, the gun death rate among children and teens has increased by 106%. So this is deeply political. It's always been political because here we are making it easier to get guns, especially if you have any kind of background of domestic violence, which we know is a telltale sign that perhaps you will be violent against others and strangers, right? To say if you've been involved in illicit activity, or if you're avoiding a background check, you too can get a gun under the Trump administration. And just look at, the amount that it has increased. You've got 9 years on the bottom here and 9 years on the right. 1966 to 75, 2013 to 2022. 1966 to 75, 12 mass shootings. From 2013 to 2022, 170 mass shootings. It is also one of the most politicizing things. If you're a young person in this country, if you're, let's say, under the age of 30, Melanie, our producer, she has an experience that Waj and I don't, which is growing up doing lone wolf or mass shooter trainings. Look, as parents, Waj, like the idea that our children are going to be going through that is awful. Like, I just, I put on a cartoon the other day and there was like a scary monster and she just like shuddered and, was like, oh no. And like the idea that a child would have to live in fear of a mass shooter because we cannot get guns under control in this country is wild, despite the fact the majority of Americans, no matter left, right, center, independent, doesn't matter, support things like background checks.
I drop off my kids every year, first day of school. And the last couple of years, I think I've tweeted this because it's never conscious, top of mind. But as soon as I drop them off and I come back home, on the drive home, I think to myself, what happens if there's a mass shooting? And it just comes out of nowhere. I'm like, how can I protect them? And the fact that I, a father, am having this thought, right? We live in a nice neighborhood, a suburban neighborhood, I guess. It's okay. It's close to the freeway. It's a good school. And I sit there and I wonder, how can I protect my children and these other babies that are there? Not my babies. I don't care. I want every child to be safe from a mass shooter. And why do I have this fear that pops into my head every single opening day of school? Is because of the story of today. Another mass shooting. The fact that it is the number one killer of kids and young teens, gun violence, for the last 2 years in a row. And this country does nothing, Francesca. Sandy Hook, white babies from an upper middle class neighborhood were mowed down, and this country did nothing. And I remember when I saw that, President Obama was the president at the time. I wasn't married, I didn't have kids, but I remember saying to myself, Francesca, that if this country doesn't do anything after upper class white babies are shredded by bullets, what will they do for your baby and my baby? It's a sickness. And I'm done with thoughts and prayers. And the question is, how much is enough? And looking at those stats that Mel compiled, apparently our appetite for the destruction and children's death is insatiable in this country.
Yes, and we're going to turn now to, what Waj and I have been talking about, and I think a lot of people have been talking about who observe this administration, is that allowing for the mass death of people at the hands of guns is a form of eugenics in and of itself. It's a form of allowing people who did not deserve to die, and letting things play out when you arm a country to the teeth. And specifically, the right loves to blame individuals. Now, they can't dig too deep on this individual because this individual, again, apparently made fun of people who protested Trump. Apparently, again, a sheriff's deputy's son was a Republican. So don't dig too deep, but definitely still blame the individual. Don't blame the access to guns. Here's Donald Trump's non-response to this really terrifying day for the students of Florida State University.
Look, I'm a big advocate of the Second Amendment. I have been from the beginning. I protected it. And these things are terrible. But the gun doesn't do the shooting. The people do. It's, a phrase that's used probably too often.
Yeah, it's used too often, my guy. Don't use it. Stop using it. It's a phrase that's used too often. And that is because, again, Waj, Republicans are obsessed with the idea that this is about the individual, and they love to talk about mental health. You've seen this. They pivoted to this maybe 5 years ago when they were getting tired of the thoughts and prayers. And so Republicans added on the sprinkle of mental health. We got to look at the mental health. We got to really talk about mental health in this country. Never mind that they are currently gutting Medicaid, have not expanded Medicaid in the places where they could have expanded it, mostly red states, all red states, in fact. But just 2022, they voted against expanding a bill for mental health care services in schools. Again, so when push comes to shove and the GOP has a chance to put their money where their freaking mouth is, they vote against it time and time again, because it's easier for us to move on and forget and just hope and pray it's not going to be your family the next time around. And to kind of put a pin on this, some more, this news broke, which is really about a soft eugenicist named RFK Jr. And RFK Jr. has actually been on record saying that SSRIs, so antidepressant medication that helps millions of people, that actually leads to what? To mass shootings. That's exactly right. He has said it leads to mass shootings. Now, you and I might say, it seems like someone who is not stably medicated or who doesn't have access economically or because they were not prescribed it or whatever it was, they couldn't afford it, that would be a cause of maybe driving someone to a certain point of insanity, in addition to, again, number one cause, the fact that we have those guns. No. RFK Jr. says the opposite. And in fact, this week, he has, it's like he's kind of been like hiding the ball, but now he's like, nah, here you go. You can see the ball. Here it is. Here's what I believe. Autism people, autistic kids, they're useless. I
know Mel wants us to move on because we have so much to talk about, but we got to play this clip.
Sure.
Oh, go ahead.
Sure. This is an individual tragedy as well. Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. These are children who should not be suffering like this. These are kids who, many of them were fully functional and regressed because of some environmental exposure into autism when they're 2 years old. And these are kids who will never pay taxes, they'll never hold a job, they'll never play baseball, they'll never write a poem, they'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. And we have to recognize we are doing this to our children.
That's a eugenicist speaking, who's the director of our Health and Human Services, a man who's not a doctor, a man who doesn't believe in vaccines, a man who spouts conspiracy theories, a man who has never actually met an autistic person if he truly believes that, a man who is to take care of our nation's health and our kids' health, but who believes this nonsense. That is RFK, a man who was a predator, a man who has probably more expertise eating exotic animals than he does understanding autism, vaccines, and science, who, as Francesca said, now that he has power, has let his freak flag fly. And this is the person that Republicans say, oh, you know what? He's in charge of Medicare and Medicaid and NIH. And by the way, yeah, this is a mental health issue. But by the way, we're going to cut anything and everything to help mental health. And we're going to hurt veterans and women and moms and families. Folks, enough is enough. Do not call them the pro-life movement. They are a pro-death movement. And if you don't believe me, you haven't paid attention for the past 10 minutes.
Absolutely. And I think the follow-up question is, well, if you believe this about autistic people, if you believe these lies that he's saying, right? Because that is not, extreme cases of autism, maybe, but the vast majority do not reflect what he is saying right there.
Nope.
But the follow-up question really is, so what do you do? Now, his answer might be to close the loop, stop giving people vaccines. Terrifying. But what about the people who've already been vaccinated, sir? And that's where the eugenics come in. That's where what do you do? Are you ripping them off their meds? Yes. Are you defunding the programs that would help them? Yes. Do you think they should go away? Yes, probably. Where should they go, dude? Like, that's what's so terrifying about this. That's why we're saying eugenics, guys. We're not trying to be glib. We're not trying to be, facile with this. But truly, when you demonize people and you misrepresent their illnesses in this way, it really is paving the way for their extermination.
Or as Elon Musk says, Francesca, non-productive people like immigrants, like immigrants who are here legally, like people like fathers who are here married and have 3 children, people like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, whom is still languishing, we think, in an El Salvador prison, folks. We don't know if he is alive. And this administration can pick up the phone, call Bukele, and bring him home, but they refuse to because of the cruelty, Francesca.
Yeah, and I want to just say that, this week, Pam Bondi has said heinous things, lies about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, saying that he was part of MS-13. She also yesterday said that Kilmar Abrego Garcia's family is better off without him, and that effectively the government saved the family from him as his wife pleads with government officials. We're going to get into the details a little bit later. But one of the things that Pam Bondi also did was release a slew of documents that allegedly proves that Kilmar Abrego Garcia is in fact a member of MS-13. And just so I don't want to read all of this, but this is from a police officer and 2019 report before Garcia was actually given a legal stay in this country for fear of returning or being returned to El Salvador. This shows or says that because he was wearing a Chicago Bulls hat, because the Chicago Bulls hat apparently had the eyes and ears and mouth scratched out. That was some sort of gang symbol. But in fact, that police officer that wrote that report, he was fired for, excuse me, providing police information to a sex worker. What?
Live, Francesca, live.
He's not an upstanding guy. And the other thing that they released later on, Waj, explain what we're looking at.
Yeah, I wanted to help you out there. The DHS document from 2019, which literally says Abrego Garcia has no criminal history. Let me repeat, no criminal history. All right. Allegedly that person who identified him as a gang member and said he was in New York. Guess what, folks? Abrego Garcia was never in New York. No criminal history, no criminal charges. A judge in 2019 heard all these alleged allegations and facts, still granted Abrego Garcia withholding of removal. He has legally been here in those past 5 years. He has married a citizen woman in Maryland. He is the father of 3 citizens. and along with 237 people, he was kidnapped. We have to use the proper word, kidnapped by the Trump administration without due process and sent to languish and die. Not necessarily even in a foreign prison, folks. This is essentially a gulag. Lawyers can't come there, no supervision when it comes to human rights abuses, no regulation, no accountability. Our taxpayer dollars gave Bukele, we gave him $6 million to do this. And now Donald Trump, as of this week, has said he's open to sending U.S. citizens abroad to this foreign gulag. We should have 15, 20 Democratic senators going to El Salvador, but at the very least, folks, we have one. Chris Van Hollen, senator from Maryland, went there. Thank you, Chris Van Hollen. This is what he had to say.
So I asked the vice president if Abrego Garcia has not committed a crime, and the U.S. courts have found that he was illegally taken for the United States, and the government of El Salvador has no evidence that he was part of MS-13. Why is El Salvador continuing to hold him in CCOT? And his answer was that the Trump administration is paying El Salvador, the government of El Salvador, to keep him at CCOT.
Now, folks, I want you to know that YouTube and Instagram and TikTok influencers have been granted access to Bukele's prison. Yes. All right. Kristi Noem, the dog killer, went there with her $60,000 Rolex watch and posed in that heinous video and photo that we've talked about on this show that was reminiscent of the photos that took place in concentration camps. But guess who got denied access? You're right, Senator Van.
Today's purpose was just to see what his health condition is. And these soldiers were ordered to prevent us from going any farther from this spot. I understand we're about 3 kilometers now from CCOT. And as you can see, they're letting other cars go by, but they stopped us because they're under orders not to allow us to proceed to check on the well-being of Kilmar.
All right, some good news, folks. Some judges have stepped up, specifically Judge Brosberg, federal judge. He's been on top of it. He was the same judge who said, turn those planes around, and they refused to listen to him. Well, now, folks, he's like, all right, I'm going to hold you potentially in criminal contempt. There is probable cause. I mean, this is some strong language. As this opinion will detail, the court ultimately determines that the government's actions on that day demonstrate a willful disregard for its order, sufficient for the court to conclude that probable cause exists to find the government in criminal contempt. The court does not reach such conclusion lightly or hastily. Indeed, it has given defendants ample opportunity to rectify or explain their actions. None of their responses has been satisfactory. So what is next? Judge Brosberg says he wants sworn statements, first from the people who can attest to the officials making the decision to not turn the plane around as they carried 238 brown migrants to El Salvador on March 15th. Then, if those statements aren't satisfactory, this judge will ask for live witnesses to testify at hearings or depositions. That could be President Trump as well, folks. And then he can ask the Justice Department to prosecute the Trump administration, or he can appoint an attorney as a special prosecutor. And I believe he should have already done it, Francesca.
Yeah, and look, I would love to see Pam Bondi held in criminal contempt for the things that she's doing. She's the actual criminal. And the thing that I want to say is to underscore what you said. Chris Van Hollen should not leave. He should stay there. He should go back every single day.
Yep.
Look, we know this as journalists. Like, you get denied places, you go, you try again. And other senators and other Congress people should go there and join him. Okay. Republicans were allowed to tour CCOT a couple months ago. All right. They know exactly how to do this. They're doing it for political purposes. Oh, I'm being paid to do crimes. It doesn't matter. You're still doing something illegal. In the meantime, however, and we have to mention this before we bring Abdul El-Sayed on, it's happening, people. American citizens are being detained under the suspicion that they're not citizens, right? And it has happened before, but it seems now even more flagrant and much more, ICE is much more excitedly doing it. A U.S.-born man in is being held under Florida's anti-immigration law, which basically says if you are undocumented, you cannot enter Florida. That's a misdemeanor. Waj, can you read this for me, please?
I can. Francesca is going to take some water and some hot tea. Juan Carlos Lopez Gomez, a 20-year-old U.S. citizen, folks, was being held in the Leon County Jail Thursday, charged with illegally entering Florida as a, quote, unauthorized alien. He is a U.S. citizen, even as the supporter waived his U.S. birth certificate in court. The man who was arrested Wednesday after a traffic stop in which he was a passenger on his way to his job is set to remain in jail for the next 48 hours, waiting for federal immigration officials to pick him up, even though Leon County authorities dropped his first-degree misdemeanor charge. And here's a graphic from the judge. Leon County Judge LaShawn Riggins, despite all this, held Lopez Gomez's birth certificate up to the light after community advocate Sylvia Alba silently waved the document in the courtroom. Quote, in looking at it and feeling it and holding it up to the light, the court can clearly see the watermark to show that it is indeed an authentic document, the judge said. Based on an inspection of his birth certificate and social security card, Riggins said she found no probable cause for the charge. However, the state prosecutor insisted the court lacked jurisdiction over Lopez Gomez's release because U.S. ICE had formally asked the jail to hold him. This court does not have any jurisdiction other than what I've already done, Judge Riggins applied. That should make you all furious. If you are not furious right now, pinch yourself to see if you are dead. Folks, this is a U.S. citizen. He was caught driving while brown in the United States of America. They had his birth certificate, they had his ID, they had his social security. He has done nothing wrong. And this administration says, even though we know we're in error, we're still going to keep him for 2 days away from his family, overruling the judge. We need people to stand up and fight this corruption, this racism, and this regime, folks. It's an authoritarian regime.
They're waiting for the brown shirts to come. I mean, they're waiting for ICE to come and overrule everything. In what world?
Oh, he was released an hour ago, Mel said. Finally. Oh, good news. Breaking news.
Okay.
Mel, our producer, said released an hour ago. Fantastic.
Amazing.
News.
Good. And thank you, Jazzy, also for the update. And again, I'm not saying this is the first time this has happened, but it's good that we're being vigilant about when it is. These guys, they're thugs. We see them breaking into people's cars to arrest them. And of course, the one thing folks have in common is they're brown.
And that is a pregnant pause for us to introduce our guest, Dr. Abdul El-Sayed, who announced his run for Senate in Michigan today, folks. It's great news. And he got a big endorsement from a man who rhymes with Yearney. I think it is Bernie. Abdul El-Sayed also ran for governor in 2018. It was an inspiring run, finished second. Abdul, welcome, sir. But before you actually speak to our audience, let us play this lovely clip of your campaign.
My name is Abdul El-Sayed. I'm running for U.S. Senate because in the state that built the American dream, it shouldn't be this hard just to get by.
To pay our bills, or afford our groceries, or see our doctors, or get our politicians in D.C.
All right, Abdul, I'm saying this. This is a crowded primary, man. You got Mallory McMurrow, who made her announcement. You got another Democrat. And you decide, you know what? I'm going to throw my hat in. Why? Why enter such a crowded field in such an important swing state? Some people are saying, you know, Mallory's there. Other folks are there. Why? Why, Abdul? Why you?
Watch. First of all, thank you and Francesca for having me here today. I'm just grateful to be able to share a bit more about what we're doing here. I started a conversation when I started public service here in Michigan about 10 years ago. And in that work, I had the opportunity to meet people in their living rooms, their VFW halls, to understand the challenges that they face, the things that keep them up at night, or what they think about when they're looking their children in the eye. And every single one of them is talking about issues relevant to whether or not they think that they can afford their life, whether or not they think they're going to be able to keep their job based on automation or AI or offshoring, whether or not they're going to be able to afford to see a doctor without having to potentially go into bankruptcy or simply because they decided to see a doctor when they got sick. They worry about the quality of the air that they're breathing or the water they're drinking. And that's true whether you're talking about folks in Flint or in Detroit, big cities in the state, or you're talking about folks in Kalkaska or Oscoda. And to me, we need somebody who is going to take on the way that Trump and Musk have exploited that pain to make it worse, to literally crater our global economy so they could pass stock tips to their friends, literally gutting some of the best things that the federal government does. We need somebody who can take them on, who can fight back. But it's not just about fighting back, it's about what you fight for. And this is the place where I think, you hear a lot about fighting from Democrats right now, most of whom have never actually been in a fight, which is clear based on how they talk about it. But it's also about what you fight for and what you want to build. And I'm somebody who's served in local government now for the better part of a decade. And my work has always been about taking on government agencies and building them in ways that deliver, whether that's erasing $700 million in medical debt, as we did in Wayne County, or putting glasses on kids' faces, as we've done for over 10,000 children in Detroit and Wayne County, or it's putting up air quality monitoring so folks know what they're breathing. I think we need that combination of somebody who can fight back and build forward. And I think I'm the only person in this race who's both willing to do that and also being willing to speak truth to power, to speak clearly, directly, because I'm not taking money from the corporations who tend to force most Democrats to trim their sails and not actually say things. So you end up hearing Democrats talking enthusiastically about the least common denominator message, which makes them sound kind of absurd, to be honest. And so,
Francesca, can I do a quick follow-up? And
Yeah.
Abdul, I know it's a big tent. It's a Democratic Party. A lot of folks like State Senator Mallory McMurrow. I've interviewed her before. She came out strong at the DNC. She's been a progressive. Why should people? Well, let me put it this way. What are you bringing that's unique and different to this field?
Yeah. Well, look, I like State Senator McMurrow as well, and I've really got nothing against the individuals in this field. What this primary is going to be about is pick your best fighter. Who do you think has the guts and the courage to step in and take on Trump and Musk? And that means they have to have the courage to tell you what they actually believe in the first place. And I think sometimes among Democrats, we're so worried about having the least offensive version of a message that is tailored so that it doesn't bother anyone, particularly donors. And so we end up saying nothing at all. And then we end up campaigning in slogans that end up being empty. And so what I'm doing is the same thing I did 8 years ago when I ran, the same thing I've been doing as a public servant in Detroit and Wayne County, which is to listen, to understand what is wrong, and then to deliver a message that is very specific about what we can do to fix it. And I think we need more of that. So how are you going to stand up to Trump and Musk if you're not even willing to stand up to the donors who too often leave us trimming our sails and saying nothing at all?
I wanted to ask if I can get the question out. You've worked in public health, right? And you understand the importance of a robust healthcare infrastructure from the point of view of the doctor and also as an official. And I want to ask you, I feel like we have learned all the wrong lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic. And so much of what was clear to many of us, to the man who endorsed you, Bernie Sanders, was that we needed a robust healthcare infrastructure. And now we're going backwards. What's your vision to move us forwards beyond just undoing the destruction of Musk and Trump?
First, Francesca, I hope you feel a lot better. We need to make sure Francesca gets healthcare. That really is.
I thought, you know what? I'm just blaming Nuzzer, man. It's evil eye. Someone evil eyed her. They liked her top. And then we need an Arab or a Pakistani auntie to recite the Quran and just blow in Francesca's direction.
Which would be included
healthcare too.
Which would be included in my Medicare for All plan. So look, I literally wrote the book on Medicare for All, and I was proud to do it because you hear a lot of the healthcare corporation talking points about what Medicare for All would take away. But what they don't tell you is that in our current healthcare system, you get your pay garnished every 2 weeks or a month so that you have the ability to pay $4,000 plus for an average family of four in a deductible just to get the healthcare you thought you already paid for. That is ridiculous. Meanwhile, the CEOs of those corporations are making $18, $20 million a year. I don't think anybody paid that money so that a healthcare CEO could buy a yacht in Florida. And so the reality of it is that we can have so much more. And so I think to Francesca's point, during COVID-19, we had a really hard time convincing a lot of folks why they should take this vaccine that didn't exist a year ago for a disease they don't yet have. When if they need insulin, for example, for their diabetes, they couldn't get access to it. And so, we only show up when you're in a moment of a pandemic and they're like, where were you when I couldn't afford my insulin? And so if we're serious about earning trust in public health, we've also got to be serious about solving the challenges in healthcare that are leaving too many people without the medication or access to healthcare that they need and that they deserve. And so we can do both at the same time. What RFK is doing right now is an anathema. He is destroying a lot of the things that this country does best. In the National Institutes of Health, there are people who will die of cancers whose solutions we could have discovered, but for the ending of NIH research grants to labs that were potentially on the cusp of making big discoveries. That is going to cost us. And so we can do so much better. But the problem is that we got to earn trust, which means you've got to show up when people need you. And that means you've got to be forward-looking, focused, direct, honest, and clear about what people need and deserve. And to me, that's guaranteed healthcare. And I think Medicare for all is the best way to do that.
You're talking about earning people's trust, and you know that the Democratic brand right now, it's suffering. In fact, ever since they've been keeping tabs, the Democratic favorability is at its lowest ever, less than 30%. People, it seems, they want fighters, Abdul. And when it comes to earning the trust of Michiganders, Michigan unfortunately went for Donald Trump. It was a close race. How do you regain the trust of so many Michiganders who, it isn't just Arabs and Muslims, folks, who said, you know what, I cannot support a party that is complicit in what we call a genocide of Palestinians. And an entire generation, Abdullah, has been radicalized against both parties. But a lot of Democrats stayed away from the election booth, right? They said, nope, we're not going to go back to this party. And they're still reeling. So especially in Michigan, as an Arab Muslim American, how do you convince those community members who are Arab, who are Muslim, who are progressive, who are young, who said, I am done with this system. I am done with this party. How do you convince them, give me a chance?
Yeah. Well, look, I have been clear about the devastation in Gaza. I didn't hesitate to call it a genocide because, frankly, I just don't know the word for what you call a situation where you kill 50,000 people and then render their home unlivable and then collude with somebody who wants to turn it into a resort. Like, if you have a better word for that, I'm happy to say it.
No, we call it genocide. So does amnesty.
Right. And so from there, though, the bigger question to me isn't necessarily about convincing folks who already see this situation for what it is. To me, it's about the conversation that we can have more broadly about why it is that in this country, while our schools are crumbling, while they're telling us that we can't afford universal health care, that we're sending tens of billions of dollars to fund a foreign military. That to me doesn't make sense. And by the way, it's not just Israel, it's Egypt, it's Saudi Arabia. Like, why are we paying for other people's militaries? It doesn't make sense. And to be honest, as you think about the consensus position that you have heard from politicians and presidents for as long as I've been alive, is that we believe in a two-state solution. So here's the thing about two states, is that we have one, but we don't have the other. So by definition, folks have been saying that they believe in the right of a Palestinian state to exist. And yet, right now, whether it was in the previous administration or this administration, we were aiding, arming, and abetting a Netanyahu regime that was literally categorically opposed and would do all they could to make sure that we never saw a Palestinian state arise. And so how can we say that we're for one thing and then be aiding, arming, and abetting people who are foreclosing on that potential? So to me, when you have that conversation with folks across the state, it's pretty clear that they kind of understand where you're coming from. Now, I think we all need to move forward. We're looking at what Donald Trump has been doing, how he's disappearing people for signing their name to an op-ed. That is wrong. It's un-American. It's unconstitutional. I think we have an opportunity here to move forward on a consensus position that says that our tax dollars shouldn't be used to kill other people's children. Instead, they should be used to protect our own.
I've heard from this interview alone that you've taken bold stances. You're not quivering on your language. You said, I am for Medicare for all. You called it a genocide, right? You want safety and security for both people, including Palestinians who deserve a homeland, right? You call yourself a progressive. You don't run away from it. And you got the backing of Bernie Sanders. You got the backing of Bernie Sanders also in 2018. Tell us where Democrats, the establishment, I'm not using the establishment necessarily as a pejorative, where have they gone wrong in their fight against Trump and what I call Trumpism, which to me is an authoritarian right-wing movement? And where can you and Democrats like you do better if you are given power by the people?
Yeah, Watch, I really appreciate the question. I will say this. I think sometimes we get caught up in where you stand relative to the Democratic Party. I'll be honest with you, like I'm a scientist by training, and so ideology, I put it aside.
Don't flex, Abdul. Don't flex. All right, just calm down. Easy. Some of us are English majors. All right.
Watch is just
Me
mad.
And Francesca are the humanities kids. We're the immigrant kids who failed our parents. You're the one, the shining star.
No. Listen, you got a TV show. I'm sitting here. I mean, listen, I'm struggling to explain to my immigrant dad why I left my job to spend 18 months without a job so that I could get a job that pays $50,000 less than my previous job. And all of this after having gone to medical school. So all of that is to say, look, I got into this because I trained as a doctor because I really wanted to help people. And then I started to realize that you could focus on the pathology in their bodies, or you could focus on the pathology that robbed them of the basic means of a dignified life. And as you started to think about why people got sick, it actually has a lot more to do with pathologies of our pathologies of our politics than it does to do with pathologies of our physiology. And as you think about like how we think about where the parties are, to me, a lot of the positions that we take, that in the richest, most powerful country in the world, that we can provide every single person guaranteed healthcare, that our economy should be about working people rather than the Fortune 500 and their ability to buy access to politicians, that you should be able to take a big deep breath and know that the air that you're sucking into your lungs is going to do you more good than it does harm. These are pretty basic things. I mean, we shouldn't have to put a label on this. Like, this should just be something that should be consensus to anybody who says that they're for working people. And the reason I say that, to answer your question, Watch, is because I think the reality of this is that if you are serious about the challenges people face, if you care about centering the people that you're listening to and talking clearly about the problems that they face, if you are not afraid to articulate what you think the world ought to look like in terms of the public policy we ought to pass, then I think you have an opportunity to come out in a campaign like this one successful. And the problem that we have as a party is that we try and triangulate to the least common denominator position that is perfectly inoffensive to anybody we talk to, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat or a donor. And then we're taught, right, to say it with enthusiasm. So if you're out there saying nothing with enthusiasm, you look ridiculous and you certainly look inauthentic. And the problem with that is that it doesn't work. You got to tell people what you believe because you listen to them and you tried to surface their pain and turn it into public policy that would heal that pain. That's what will win in 2025. And to his credit, Donald Trump at least could understand the pain. He transmogrified it into something way worse, into cynicism, into hate for the government, into hate for other people. But we've got to find that pain and see it in people and then turn it into hope, turn it into opportunity, turn it into public policy that could actually solve people's problems. If we do that, I think we win.
Let me ask you this final question, which brings in everything that you talked about with some breaking news. The problem of Democrats that me and Francesca have talked about on the show, especially when it comes to immigration, she lives, folks, she lives, is that they've listened to consultants instead of leading with ethics and compassion and integrity. They listened to the polls in which it was 50-50, 51-49 for Donald Trump on immigration. For a couple of weeks, they've been silent as this administration, like you said, has kidnapped grad students like Rameza Osterk, like Mahmoud Khalil, like these 238 overwhelmingly innocent brown individuals without criminal charges. And finally, this week, now that the story of Abrego Garcia is not going away, now that it has come into the news at the forefront, now that it has horrified people, now and only now, they're finally coming up with some message, right? So this is some breaking news, folks. Apparently, this was tweeted out. This is Senator Van Hollen, who is meeting Abrego Garcia. He is alive. Apparently, he is alive. This was tweeted out. Abrego Garcia was brought out, and Senator Van Hollen allegedly, apparently it's confirmed, met him. Your message when it comes to immigrants and undocumented immigrants, who, in my opinion, have been dehumanized by both parties, the establishment, and the media.
Yeah, look, I think all of our parents came here believing in an America where they could build. They don't want to take, they want to build. They wanted to build a life for themselves, a life for their kids. And what happened is that Trump used an admittedly broken situation at the border. And look, we got to secure the border, but he used it to demagogue all of immigration. Why? Because his vision for America is one where people who look like me, who look like you, Waj, who look like you, Francesca, don't want to be here, don't want to come in the first place. And I think America is better for us. And so what's happening right now is that under the guise of this attempt to undo immigration entirely, they are literally breaking the Constitution over their knee on this issue.
Yeah.
So we've got to step in and just say, actually, no, actually, immigration has been really net positive. Like if America had one neat trick, it's to be able to take all of the world's human capital and get them to want to come here and build here, right? And the reality of it is that we are going to be so much worse off without the smartest scientists, without the people who have fought for democracy in their communities coming here so that they can continue to organize. We are going to be so much worse off when they choose not to come. And I think about what my life would have been had my parents not come, and it would have been so different. But I also think about all of the folks who my parents got to work with and build with, right? My dad holds several patents. Like that wouldn't have been done here had he not come. So we're all better off for it.
Last question, doctor. What should I do about this chest cold? It's like, it really is here. It's not in the throat. It's just here.
I'm sorry.
Should I do just Vicks? Is that what you suggest?
Look, I really think if you got pain, you need to go see a doctor.
Thank you.
But you also got to rest up and also stop talking to this guy so much, huh?
All right.
But look, if folks want to get involved, I hope they'll go to abdulforsenate.com. Please do get involved. Francesca, I hope you feel better. Watch, still looking good, brother. Still looking good.
You got the beard game. Abdul, because a lot of people are thirsty right now, can you please confirm that you're happily married?
I'm happily married with two kids, and I'm grateful for Sarah, who is the rock who's making all this possible. So
and knowing Sarah, Abdul, like me, married up, and yes, she's Definitely the better half that keeps him grounded. Final message: you promoted yourself, but I'm going to give you another opportunity. Shamelessly promote yourself to our audience, to our community. How can they support you? How can they help you? How can they help all of us fight back against a fascist regime?
I don't take corporate PAC money. Instead, I ask folks like you for support. Please go to abdulforsenate.com. If you can chip us off $5 and make it a recurring donation, it goes a really long way to help us move our message forward. I believe deeply in my state. I believe deeply in our country. I believe deeply if we are willing to come together around something that's greater than us, we really can take our country back, and we can build the kind of government that is truly of the people, for the people, and by the people. That's what we're doing here. I hope folks will join us. I'm really grateful to you guys for having me here today. Francesca, feel better? I really frankly, right now, if I had no motivation for Medicare for All, I'd be like, listen, somebody get that woman some Medicare for All. Okay, she needs it.
That's exactly. I do. Oh my God.
Abdul's Arabic is much better than mine, so maybe he can do some Ayatul Kursi on the way out.
Yes, exactly.
A virtual pook. That's for the Muslims. Don't worry. You'll understand. It was on point. Thank you, Abdul, for your time. Everyone, please follow Abdul El-Sayed. He is running for Senate in the great state of Michigan. It's going to be wild, but he's a fighter, and he has, folks, the endorsement of Bernie Sanders.
Indeed. Thank you. We need him in the Senate. Like I've just listening to all that through my coughs. The problem is we have people like John Fetterman. Like, what a waste.
What a waste.
What a non-fighter. What a sack of however much money you can stuff into this disgusting hoodie wins. And so the fact that Abdul here, unapologetic about Medicare for All, unapologetic about, ending the occupation and having an actual, Palestinian state, at least like naming that. We need fighters because we have a lot of We have a lot of, first of all, it's incredible that Van Hollen was able to meet. I mean, this is
Great
a
news.
fighter. This is a fighter.
Well
And
done, Van Hollen.
what we said yesterday, or what I said yesterday, and what we said on Tuesday was don't leave. More people should be joining him. And look, he was finally able to meet with his own constituents. So
And
this
he went
is
on his own. We said, yeah, on Tuesday's show, we said there should have been 12 people, but he stayed there and he got it done. The cameras were on him. He understood how to use story and messaging. He understood how to capitalize on the moment. And this wasn't for money. This was to make sure that a father and husband was still alive. And thankfully he is. Well done, Van Hollen.
Yeah. And to just contrast that, here's someone who definitely would never, ever stick her neck out. Alaska Senator, correct? Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski,
Yep.
Republican, was asked at a town hall if she's afraid, if she's scared. And this answer was far more disturbing coming out of the mouth of a senator than if it was like your neighbor. Take a listen.
What do you have to say to people who are afraid? Or who represent people who are afraid? We are all afraid. Okay? It's quite a statement. But we are, we're in a time and a place where I don't know, I certainly have not been here before. And I'll tell you, I'm oftentimes very anxious myself about using my voice, because retaliation is real, and that's not right.
Then just resign. Just it's okay.
I'm
You can go
afraid
home.
to use my voice. Yeah. What are you doing then? What, you're a legislator. You're one of the most powerful people in the country, and you're afraid. And God, watch, I hate being proven right about Republican women, but you're like, and Lisa Murkowski's taken some, bold votes here and there. And yeah, her own party is, hammered her over it, but she's still standing. So what are you talking about? And sometimes I'm afraid to use my voice, like that's it feels like a trad wife, you know what I mean? Like it feels like, oh, you're just a stereotype of a Republican woman, seen, not heard, you can be there, but don't get too uppity on us. The question was, what do you say to people who are afraid? I am too. Long pause. I don't know, whatever. Like, that's not what I want in my leader. You can say you're afraid, but here's what I'm doing about it. X, Y, and Z. Lay it out for people, not the just their retaliation is real. That is terrifying.
It's milk toast privileged whining from an alpha Karen. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
And especially as people of color, women of color, the squad gets routine death threats thanks to Donald Trump and MAGA, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, AOC. They still brave it. They go out in front. They still fight. We're not asking you to storm the beaches of Normandy. We're asking you to stand up to Donald Trump and MAGA. Name it, call it. Mitt Romney, now that he has nothing to lose, openly said he had to spend money, his own money, every month for private security to protect his family. From who? Not Antifa, not Frantifa, not from the woke, from MAGA. On the DL, Republicans have been saying this. Murkowski, the one positive is she finally said it out loud, but in such a milquetoast way. And if you're unwilling to use your voice, retire. Francesca,
exactly. And name it. What are you afraid of? If you
who are you afraid of?
If you actually are afraid of are you afraid of Elon's money? Name it. Are you afraid of Donald Trump's political retaliation? Name it. Are you afraid of Donald Trump's militarized base of, militias who will knock on your door, who are threatening you? Then name that, right? There is strength in numbers. Murkowski, you could have people at your back. You could have people supporting you in this, but instead you just get this sort of vague, sad, pathetic leadership that really does not inspire any kind of courage in anyone else. I mean, imagine listening to that. You walk away like, oh my God, we got to get her out of here, or I got to get out of here.
Stale, wet white bread. That's what it reminds me of. Stale, wet, white bread. And last thing we'll say before we give you some good news and end the show is Republicans created and nurtured this monster. They nurtured it. They thought they could control it. We kept warning them that the monster will escape and turn on you. And voila, it has. This is the F round and find out moment. This is the leopard that enjoys eating faces.
Yes.
Eating faces moment for the Republican Party. And we can be a bit petty on this show, but petty for good. Give me some good petty news for today and let us leave the people out with a little smile on their face.
Well, look, I don't love to make fun of the MyPillow guy because sometimes it feels like punching down, but he is a rabid election denier, conspiracy theorist, weirdo. And he does have money. I don't know why he says he doesn't, but Mike Lindell says he's in ruins because a court is ordering him to pay up to Smartmatic for all the defamation that he has been spinning, $56,369. Come on, Mikey. You have an entire channel. You have absolutely doesn't he have like a whole news show? You going around with like undercover cameras and this and that. You've got money. Okay. How much? $50,000. That's like what? 12 MyPillows. You've sold these. All right. So stop going around being like, I'm broke, but apparently he's broke. So we delight in the fact that he, yes, has to pay up like every other maggot that has defamed people, like the top one, defaming E. Jean Carroll. You're going to have to pay up. It might not be $83 million like it was for Trump, but you're going to have to pay up some money. So we take a little bit of pleasure in that.
And I would like to thank Francesca for being a warrior and toughing it out. It was really interesting. This show, I'm on vacation, folks, so I have the most interesting setup. In the first 20 minutes of the show, you all didn't know, but I sent a message. Apparently, I had an allergic reaction, so my tongue was swelling, so I couldn't talk. So I'm like, I can't talk, loosening up my tongue. And right after I said that, Francesca just started coughing. So I'm convinced there was the evil eye because Francesca looks fabulous and everyone loves her top. And maybe people like my gray dad beard. But we toughed it through,
texting us.
And you saw it with us, nearly 4,000 people. Thank you all for watching our show. Please like this video, folks. If you do not subscribe to Zeteo, please subscribe. In less than a year, they almost have up to 750,000 subscribers on YouTube. It goes a long way. Thank you to all the super chatters who gave us $1, $2, $3, $5. The super chats goes a long way. Thank you to this one, $6.99 from Canada. We love the Canadians. Please, if you can, click that bell and you'll be notified each time we go live. We'll be back Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern time. But before we do, Francesca, with the remaining energy you have left in your vocal cords, how can people support you? How can people find you?
YouTube.com/FrannyFio. That's where the Bituation Room lives. You can also listen as a podcast Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 p.m. Eastern. Come see me in Pasadena next Wednesday, April 23rd for my show New World Disorder that I do monthly. And then on May 7th in San Francisco for Cobb's Comedy, me and Matt Lieb are co-headlining. It's going to be such a good night, so get your tickets.
And apparently, I was wrong. We have 6,000 viewers watching. It's a new show, less than 3 months old. This is it's a live show. It's the first live show for Zeteo. We know we're competing with a lot of eyeballs. It takes a little bit of time to build up a community, but we feel like we have a robust community. So many people who come every Tuesday and Thursday. We see you. Thank you so much for spreading the good word. And we are seeing, folks, if we actually can tell you the good news post 100 days. But we know for a fact we will be here next week. Send us some good vibes. Thank you, everyone. I'm at thelefthook.substack.com. The Left Hook, all the content is free. Did some fantastic interviews yesterday with Heather Cox Richardson, Eddie Glaude, and also today with Danielle Moody. And tomorrow, 12 p.m. Eastern time, we host Democracy-ish with me and Danielle Moody on Danielle Moody's YouTube. Thank you, folks. Take care of yourself. And Francesca, the final word goes to you.
Until Tuesday, keep your screws tight, America, and we'll see you then. Bye-bye.